Hello again. I just want to run through some aspects of things that you could call them visions of spiritual aspect of people, or visions into the spirit world that manifest themselves through people, something like that. So actually, something I prayed about not so long ago was the idea that I'll be interested in being able to see into the spirit realm, to see beyond the physical manifestations of the world. So in other words, beyond what we see of people physically, into what lies beyond that in terms of what a person looks like spiritually. And it would seem apparent that, if you can take it upon faith that the spiritual nature exists, that somebody who is born of the Spirit themselves would eventually be able to see the spiritual aspect, the spiritual realm, or people who have a spirit within them, that can become visibly manifested at some point. And just beyond the realm of supernatural and spirituality, personally in my life I've also investigated the sciences. I studied sciences and mathematics at high school level, and I studied psychology, computer sciences and stuff at university level. I did a major study in psychology, so I'm quite familiar with psychological phenomena, how people can manifest different mental illnesses, psychologically. I guess the state of medical science and psychology as such, as a separate stream, have progressed, in relatively recent times. Historically people have viewed mental illness in a way that's different to how they view it now. Some people have seen mental illness where others within the church institutions have seen demonic possession and things like that. That's not to say that one or the other are not true. Perhaps they're both true at the same time. That a demonic possession can basically manifest itself as a form of mental illness that can be diagnostically kind of categorized and things like that. But what I discovered about psychology when I was studying it was that really it rarely did it manage to get to the level of actually what the root causes of psychological illness were in most cases. It would basically get as far as being able to sort of label mental illness. So people would have a set of symptoms that they would have, and somebody diagnosing them would record the details of their symptoms, and by comparing that against a standardized manual called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illnesses, you'd be able to work out from the different symptoms that they had what mental illness theoretically they had. But that's just a label that says that somebody who has negative thoughts all the time has sort of feeling emotional effect that's depressed, or down, or whatever, how you want to describe it, those sort of things that those people, and it happens for a prolonged period of time, yada yada. that person's suffering from depression, like stick a label on there, you're suffering from depression. But that doesn't tell you really what is the cause of the depression. What's the underlying cause of it. Just labeling somebody as suffering from depression doesn't really explain it. Who's to say that they don't have that a mental illness like depression doesn't have a spiritual aspect to it, that somebody can be spiritually oppressed, suppressed, spiritually possessed, and that manifests itself in the symptoms that we call depression. So there's no way to know that. So you just have to take these things on faith. One of the classic mental illnesses that's in the psychology that I've learned, and one that I've had personal experience with with people in my own immediate family, is a mental illness known as schizophrenia, which is a chemical imbalance in the brain, which is how it's described in textbooks and things like that. But people who suffer from schizophrenia will experience hallucinations. They can experience visual hallucinations. They see things that aren't there. Auditory hallucinations. They hear things that aren't there. Voices in their head. They'll have sensation hallucinations where they can feel heat or cold or whatever. All these sort of things. But somebody that's got schizophrenia and they're not being treated, their hallucinations are ongoing. They're not going to sort of drift in and out of a state of hallucination. They're going to be hallucinating, as an ongoing thing, a daily thing. They will be living in this world of hallucination. They'll be hearing voices all the time, seeing bizarre visions all the time. So they're not going to be able to differentiate between what is reality in terms of what the normal person, baseline normal person, describes as being reality, where they can hear people talking, whatever, but they're not hearing voices in their head, and stuff like that. They can see what's going on in the world, but they're not seeing bizarre images or bizarre things or people or whatever, like plants moving like they're alive or stuff, things like that. It's an hallucination. Normal people don't see plants that are alive, on a daily basis, sort of thing, or at all, So there is really, if not a qualitative, there's a quantitative difference. The amount of over a period of time, it would be able to define, that somebody's hallucinating from a mental illness, or whether they had an hallucination because of, a drug they were taking, like LSD or something, as opposed to somebody who genuinely had a vision, like Joan of Arc, obviously wasn't taking drugs. Nobody ever sort of treated her like a mentally ill person. She ended up the leader of the French army at one stage, so she was taken as a pretty rational, sane person, but she had these incredible visions, things that she saw, and very powerful visions and stuff as well. So you just have to accept that sort of thing on faith, that people can have visions of things that are not hallucinations. There is, for the Christian at least, the realm of possibility of looking into the supernatural, seeing things that other people cannot see through supernatural perception. So it's something that I've prayed about personally, to be able to have this supernatural perception of reality, and but I didn't want to have it straight away all at once, because I'm a cautious person, and I think that's going to be a shock to my system, to go from seeing what everybody else sees to suddenly be able to see with this supernatural perception things that manifest themselves spiritually. Goodness knows what can manifest itself spiritually. You know, so dare I say, I approached it cautiously, you know, and in my prayer life requested this ability to see supernaturally, but to develop it progressively, you know, so that it wouldn't be too overwhelming, so I could come to terms with it, you know, deal with it and gradually get used to it. And I have to say that over a period of years now, I have seen some pretty powerful spiritual manifestations, and I think they're getting more intense or more apparent. There's more spiritual stuff going on in this world now than there was a few years ago. I'm starting to see, particularly during this COVID pandemic, there's been a couple of really sort of key moments in it where it's spiked, you know, in terms of the fear that, you know, that's either been led by the media or whatever, or just generally the fear that's out there in the community about this pandemic. As that has kind of increased or reached the heights that it's reached during sort of the first waves of it. You know, we've had quite a few waves of it now in different variants and stuff. Back in 2020, when the first waves were hitting, you know, there was a huge amount of anxiety and fear and panic, and we were only coming to terms with understanding what this virus was and what the symptoms of it were, you know, and things like that. And people were freaking out, you know, panic buying toilet paper and stuff, you know, and the amount of fear that was in the community was quite extreme, you know. And I did start to see some bizarre spiritual manifestations at that time, you know. I remember seeing people whose faces was sort of transformed, basically, and I don't know whether you're familiar with a lot of the sort of myth or lore surrounding the UFO phenomena or the alien phenomena, but there is kind of a standardized depiction of what's referred to as a grey alien, which is this kind of alien face, or, you know, bizarre looking non-human looking face. This kind of what would you describe it as, almost triangular in shape, with sort of large dark oval shaped eyes and more or less just a slit for a mouth, you know, and no hair, like not on the head of it or on the face of it, and really no visible ears, you know, just this kind of oval shaped, and the complexion is like elephantine grey coloured skin all over, the grey alien. And that, you know, that image is kind of out there as being the image of an alien creature, something not of this world but from another world. Well, I've seen that face or that image manifest itself in people's faces. So I've looked and seen, instead of seeing a human face of a person, I've seen the grey alien face, like they're as though they were possessed of the spirit of this alien creature. I don't believe that the grey alien is an actual alien, in the sense that you know, UFO people believe aliens to exist. I believe what we're looking at here is actually the actual physical manifestation of what's referred to biblically as demons, or fallen angels is another description of them. So what we learn in the Bible about the devil and his angels was that they were cast out of heaven into the earth, this world, and they roam about in this world. Ultimately, they're condemned to hell, but during this time, they're sort of also manifesting themselves in the world. So I guess the doorway or the gateway into this world would, from the other realm of hell, would, for these spiritual creatures, would be through humanity, to sort of possess people, basically, spiritually possess people. And when you think about it, it makes sense, because if you imagine what an angel would look like, they're described in the Bible as being just basically like us. They look just basically like us, people, sort of humanoid features and stuff. But if you imagine you take that humanoid person and then put them in hell, where it's like burning hot all the time, it's going to basically melt your face off, and you'd end up looking like a Skeletor, like a skull with big black holes where your eyes were, and just, sort of you wouldn't have any lips or anything. So really, to my mind, the face of the grey alien is really just what's left of the face of angels that have fallen and are now in hell. They've got this skull-like, bland, hideous appearance, which is just looks like the grey alien face. And I've seen that, as I said, I've seen people that manifest that face, for whatever reason. And it seems to be connected to people who, when I've seen the manifestation of the alien face, or what I believe is a demonic face, manifest itself on a person, that person has been somebody that I have occasionally known to be somebody that's like not a nice person, or somebody who has not been nice to me. They've been a neighbourhood bully or something like that, that I've known or has been around, or I've noticed the way they dress, is a particular way. The classic dress of these people seems to be a black hooded top, basically, the hoodie. And for whatever reason, it seems to be almost like a uniform for evil people. A black hoodie. Yep, with the hood up, and you'll see the grey alien face on them. That's what I've seen. So I've seen them individually, and I've seen them in groups. There was one occasion when I was working, and I saw 3 people outside of the hotel, because we have cameras outside the hotel pointing into sort of outside areas, and I saw 3 people dressed in black hoodies standing outside the hotel early hours of the morning, one morning when I was working. And I saw them on the CCTV camera, which is in the office. And anyhow, the people on that image actually transformed. The image I saw on the camera footage transformed from 3 individuals into one large black figure, which basically transformed into what appeared to me a large black bird, like a raven, or I don't know what else. We have something called crow, I suppose, a crow or a raven type of thing, a big black bird with a pronounced beak and just black. And not only did it appear to be a large black bird, but I could see what looked like heat waves or smoke sort of emanating from the black bird thing. I saw it for, several minutes before it basically transformed back into 3 people with black hoods. And one of the people with the black hoods came back into the reception, walked through the front doors, and I could see they looked like a normal person wearing a black hood. So quite bizarre, quite surprising, So that was one manifestation. That was something that reminded me of an aspect in the Bible called the Trinity. We know from the Bible that God is in 3 persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And those 3 persons make up one God head or God person. So it would make sense that if God is a Trinity, evil would probably also manifest itself in a Trinity or triad, so that 3 evil people would come together in a spiritual way to form one evil entity. And that's certainly what I saw. That's what I saw, and that's the way I interpreted that. So that was another manifestation that I've seen. Aside from the alien faces type of one. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, so another one that I've seen is like a vampire guy. Yeah, this was an interesting one. So once again, it was early hours in the morning. I was watching some CCTV footage, and I saw a person on the CCTV that I'd seen in person, and they had just a normal human face when I saw them in person. But when I saw them on the CCTV footage walking around, this is extremely bizarre and should be theoretically impossible. Their face was blank, completely blank. Like, that's bizarre. Like, you can see a person walking around on a camera or on a CCTV feed, but you can see their body, everything in the room, but their face is blank. How is that possible? It's not. It's not scientifically possible to have a blank face on a CCTV camera. Something very bizarre, not a live feed. Maybe you could somehow edit it or whatever to blank out the faces, like pixelate or blank out the faces, but not live. You don't walk around with a blank face. But that's what I saw. I saw people walking around with a blank face. So what I decided to do was slow down the images to see if I could catch out, this kind of deception or mask, or however this was done. Supernaturally is what I was imagining, because I couldn't see a scientific way that you could do that. Blank out a face. So I thought, okay, I'm going to see if I can catch out the disguise, the image, the blanking out. So I slowed down frame by frame as I watched the person walking around on the CCTV, and I caught one image of their face, but it looked nothing like the normal looking person that I'd seen physically face to face. Their face looked hideous. It looked like closest thing I could say would be this very old horror movie called Nosferatu. It's basically a very early version of Dracula. Count Dracula sort of thing. This creature with a bald head, ugly, hideous features, fang-like teeth, creeping around, hunched over and stuff. But that's what the face of this person looked like on the CCTV. It went from being a blank face to being Nosferatu, then back to a blank face again. But when you saw the person face to face, they looked normal. So what I was seeing had to be spiritual, supernatural in nature. So like a vampire. So I've seen people that manifest the alien, or I think it's a demonic, basic demonic possession. People that have manifested other kind of maybe different demonic manifestations, or maybe other evil spirit type manifestations of a vampire sort of a character. Okay, so that's two that I've seen so far. A third one that I've seen more recently during the COVID pandemic was a zombie creature. So this happened on Oxford Street, early hours of the morning. I was walking one direction down Oxford Street, and coming towards me from the other direction was this person that looked extremely tall and thin. As they were approaching me, they looked unnaturally tall and thin, but the way they were walking was what caught my attention in particular. It was very unnatural, very bizarre. They were sort of not walking like a normal person would walk towards me. They were sort of stepping sideways from one side and zigzagging back across to the other side. But they weren't zigzagging in small steps. They were taking really big steps, sort of big, large steps from side to side. So they'd step to one side, and then step back to the other side, and then back to the other side in large steps, sort of zigzagging across the street as they approached me. Looking very tall, very thin, very unnatural. Kind of reminded me of the way a praying mantis moves. If you've ever seen the insect, the praying mantis, it's a very large, thin, kind of carnivorous insect. Kind of the gait of it when it moves was not unsimilar to this person, or this person that somehow manifested something quite evil, I think. So they were walking towards me in this bizarre way, and as I got close to them, they stopped in front of me and just made a bizarre sort of croaking, kind of groaning sound, like you've seen depicted in the movies, the sound that a zombie makes, this croaking, groaning sound, and just that sound. It wasn't like a person standing in front of me. It's like a zombie basically standing in front of me, but a particular type of a bizarre zombie. So I saw that manifestation fairly recently. Let me think now what the other one was. The most recent one that I've had, and probably the most shocking manifestation that I've had so far, of a person that looks spiritually completely different, happened just tonight, actually, as I was driving in to the CBD down a main road. I looked off to the left side, where there's often people standing on the side of the road. I think possibly there's like a bus shelter, or that's where a bus stop is or something. It's near a railway station, or the exit of a railway station, and there's like a bus shelter or something there on the left hand side of the road as you look off the side of the road. And I saw the figure of a person standing on the side of the road with their mobile phone held up, to their face, sort of thing, held up in the air, pretty much facing facing me as I approached them down the road. And they were dressed in a suit, like a business suit, wearing a COVID face mask. I noticed their head was kind of hairless. There was no hair on their head. But I got this sudden shock sensation, like if you're watching a horror movie, or I saw the latest version of the latest Ghostbusters movie, and there's a few shock moments in that where those dog-like things jump out of the screen at you. Those the keymaster and the gatekeeper or whatever, they jump out of the screen at you in the latest Ghostbusters movie, and it gives you a heart starter, like a shock sensation. And that's the feeling I got when I saw the face of this person standing on the side of the road. Like some horrible creature jumped out at me, and it shocked me, it scared me, when I saw it. And when I kind of had time to process it, and see it more clearly, this kind of bald head person had basically like the face of the devil, basically. That's the only way I could describe it. It looked like the face of the devil. I've seen depictions of the devil. There's a classic one, which is actually in a book, quite a famous book that's supposed to be the Devil's Bible. There's a book out there, it's supposed to be called the Devil's Bible, and there's a drawing in that done by a monk, a famous monk apparently, that wrote it, I think. And he apparently saw, like a vision of the devil, and he drew a picture of it in this book called the Devil's Bible. And that's a classic depiction of what the devil looks like. But there's various other depictions, of what the devil looks like, but it always comes back to a fairly standardized kind of look. The horns, probably like a red face, and just like an elf-like kind of evil-looking demonic face. And that's basically what this person looked like, for all intensive purposes, like a normal human being, but their face was the face of the devil under a COVID mask. I've never seen anything more shocking in my entire life, standing on the side of the road, that somebody could manifest such a high-level demonic presence as the devil himself in my city where I live and work. That is scary. That's incredibly scary. So from demons to like maybe lower order demons or evil spirits to the devil himself, I've seen all of those manifestations. And kind of over a period of time, not all on the same night, And I've seen different ones more than one time. I've seen the black hooded demonic grey alien faces, various places, various people, but those ones seem to come out when the pandemic fear is at its height, when everybody's panicking like crazy. I start seeing these demonic faces on people. Like perhaps maybe that's when they're more open to being possessed demonically. So that would make sense. When people are in a state of fear and panic, they're open to being possessed, and that's when these demonic spirits can get in and possess them, basically. So that's when I start to see the manifestation of that. That's when I have seen it on numerous occasions. But I only seen that face of the devil manifestation once, and it was quite shocking. The only thing that compared with that was the manifestation of the zombie that I saw on the street, which when it stopped and kind of squawked at me or groaned at me, I felt that same shock, like potentially a spiritual attack upon you, like trying to reach out in the spiritual and attack you. You feel it like a heart attack. It shocks you. So yeah, just wanted to share those with you, because I believe this is more anecdotal evidence, of where the world is headed, and it's not headed in a good direction. So if you want to see these things for yourself, you're going to have to pray about it, but it's not for the faint-hearted. You're not going to go mad because of it, but you might struggle with it, emotionally. I guess it's just building up the believers is what it is, to be able to kind of see into that realm. Perhaps to some extent is kind of edifying for the Christian church, to demonstrate that we do have that spiritual perception. We can get to that level if we want to, God willing as well. Yeah, so I'll leave you with those thoughts in Jesus' name. Amen.